Hello, my name is Coach Sami Dhianga from Nairobi, and today here I'm seated with David Meddings. He is the Executive Director, WHO. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm David Meddings. I'm the technical lead for everything related to drowning prevention at the WHO headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland.
Awesome. What would you say the rate of drowning is?
Well, the rate of drowning worldwide is, we lose about 236,000 people from drowning every year. Yeah. That number is an underestimate of the true number because there are some deaths that would be due to drowning, but which are not actually statistically counted as drowning. So what I mean by that is we have things like ferry boat capsizes. Those deaths are not recorded as drowning deaths. We have people who drown in floods. Those are also not captured as drowning deaths. So the number of 236,000, which is a big number, doesn't capture everything.
Awesome. The last time I checked, it was about 320,000. You mean the number has reduced?
Yeah, the number's been going down. There's probably a number of reasons for that. One is that our data sources, remember I said at the beginning, these are estimates. Yeah. So these are estimates based on data that the WHO receives from every country around the world. Those data sources are not always completely accurate. There are some statistical reasons why this number might be going down, but there may very well be a genuine decrease in drowning deaths that's occurring as well.
Lovely to hear that, David. So I was with you in 2018 in Zanzibar and last year as well in Zanzibar. Today we are in India, in Pune. How do you think these forums, or rather these conferences, help in drowning mitigation strategies? What exactly we are doing? How does they help?
It's a great question. So, and thanks, Sami, for bringing up the question, but also for having contributed to these workshops, this series of workshops that we've been running, as you said, since 2018. The problem that we're trying to deal with in workshops like this is WHO has guidance that is pitched at a high global level. It means that how we talk about what sorts of things you can do to prevent drowning has to necessarily be something that's valid for somebody who lives in Kenya, but also equally valid for somebody who lives and works in Cambodia. And a result of that is the way we actually put the guidance out doesn't give us the ability to give fine-grained detail for every circumstance. So what we're doing in this series of workshops is working with practitioners like yourself, people who are engaged in drowning prevention, working at the community level, and we're asking collectively people who are involved in drowning prevention at the community level to put on those sort of final finishing touches with practical guidance and a high level of detail that allows people working in different programs all around the world to have a globally standardized community of practice around drowning prevention, so that people are doing things to the same level of quality, because that's important, and staying true to the evidence base for what prevents drowning.
Awesome. You have been working with the WHO for quite some time now. Would you say, is there a problem in some of the continents or countries accepting that drowning is a world health problem?
Yeah, I've been working with WHO for over 20 years now, and it is, let's say, it's not necessarily people's first reaction. When they think about public health problems, most people think about big infectious disease threats. They think about malaria, they think about TB, they think about HIV infection, and those are important public health problems. But one of the things, in particular with drowning, when you look at drowning, there's a big impact of drowning affecting young children. And if you look at the causes of death for young children, say children under the age of 5, over the last 30, 40 years, we've made tremendous progress, and many fewer children under the age of 5 are dying today due to the things that used to kill them in the early 1980s, for example. And that's due to progress in things like vaccine-preventable illnesses. It's due to progress in the way we treat certain infections. But the bottom line to understand is many fewer children under the age of 5 are dying from the diseases that used to kill them. And there is presently today a much bigger proportional impact that is due to causes like drowning. In fact, in a number of countries, drowning will be the leading killer of children between the ages of 1 and 4. Okay. So it becomes not number 10 or number 17, it becomes number 1 in terms of the things that are killing young children. And recognition of that transition, recognition that has changed over the last 40 years from infectious diseases being a primary kind of a concern for young children is a difficult thing. We need to work with all of the stakeholders in public health to make them aware that the pattern of things that kill young children is changing over time.
All right. Let me ask you, do you have an estimated time on when probably WHO will be able to cover, or rather say that now we have combated drowning cases and now we are sitting somewhere comfortable towards eliminated drowning completely? Do you have a number? Maybe probably 50 years to come, 100 years to come?
Well, I hope it's tomorrow, because any death due to drowning is a death too much. And really, if you think about what I was just mentioning about, very young children, you think of how that shatters a family to have say a 3-year-old boy or girl drown. So I would love to see progress continue with drowning and achieve a world that is completely free of drowning as quickly as possible. Now, that's what I want. It's not really very realistic to imagine that we'll ever approach a situation where we literally have 0 people drowning every year. But WHO has already been working very actively on the global front in relation to drowning since really 2014, when we launched the Global Report on Drowning. And there's been a tremendous amount of progress since that time. We've got many more NGOs that are working on drowning, people like yourself that are active, passionate, engaged, and committed to drowning prevention in your country, in Kenya. People working across, if I continue with Kenya, elsewhere in Eastern Africa and Uganda and Tanzania, we're seeing surveys being done to look at the causes of drowning in Eastern African countries. We're seeing more and more countries developing national water prevention strategies. We're starting to see connections being made between climate change and flood risk, disaster risk mitigation for floods, becoming much more sensitive to the fact that floods are an important potential cause for drowning. So bit by bit, we are seeing an increased number of actors working on drowning. Quite an exciting development over the last 2 years has been the development in 2021 of a United Nations General Assembly resolution on drowning, the first time the UN General Assembly has ever adopted a resolution about drowning. And then that's been followed up in 2023 by a World Health Assembly resolution on drowning. That latter resolution, the World Health Assembly resolution, which is WHO's governing body, it calls on WHO to set up a global alliance for drowning prevention, and we've done that now. So we've got a 10-member global alliance for drowning prevention that has 5 UN members in it. Those UN agencies are addressing very, very different parts of the problem. So I'm very optimistic for the future. I think there's been a tremendous ramping up of energy and enthusiasm and action on drowning over the last, let's say, 10 years. And I'm really optimistic that that's going to keep continuing.
Awesome. We have quite a good number of guidelines that have been published by WHO in regards to drowning mitigation. Are you in a position to gauge the community acceptance of these guidelines?
Well, I think it's good in some senses and not so good in others. And what I mean by that is we've got some excellent program implementers. We've got a whole workshop going here in Pune, India, where we've got really the best of the best in terms of the intervention for delivering programs to safely rescue somebody who is drowning and then carry out resuscitation for those people who need to be resuscitated. So we do have some excellent examples of evidence-based drowning prevention interventions being implemented, but we always would love to see more. You know, there are unfortunately many countries in the world where we don't really have a sort of a well-developed group of organizations that are working at the level of the community, that are engaged on drowning prevention, that have made themselves aware of what the evidence base is and the WHO guidance for drowning prevention. So I'm afraid there's always a lot more work to do, Sammy.
All right, let me ask you, we have been discussing about the CPR, mouth-to-mouth ventilation. Is there any trauma associated with trauma after one administering CPR? Maybe they were performing CPR or mouth-to-mouth ventilation and eventually, probably by bad luck, they lose that person. Is there trauma after that?
Yeah, there certainly can be. I mean, if somebody that you are desperately trying to save, you know, just picture it in your mind. You've got a person that you've rescued from the water. They're not breathing. They don't have a heartbeat. You may not even know how long they've been submerged in the water. You, as an informed rescuer who knows how to do CPR, who knows how to provide artificial respiration to that person, that drowning victim, are doing everything that you possibly can to save a life. And it might be a 6-year-old girl, maybe even somebody that you know. And you're doing your best to administer CPR, to administer rescue breathing for that person. And despite your best efforts, they've been submerged too long, the heart's not had enough oxygen for too long a period of time, the brain's not had enough oxygen, and unfortunately they die. You've done your best, but you've not been successful, and you've had close physical contact with, in this example I'm giving, of a young little girl who's now dead and gone, and there's nothing that you could do about it. That's something that I, as a doctor, have experienced. I've delivered CPR and resuscitation that has been successful for patients. I've also done that where it's not been successful. And you never forget a situation where you're doing your best to try and save somebody's life and you're unsuccessful. So I'm afraid there is trauma, yes.
Thank you for that, David. In Nairobi, actually, I'm very happy to be interviewing you at this particular moment, because we are facing a very dire situation. El Nino is on the way, probably, according to experts, in the next a month or so. What are some of the regrettable destructions that come with such rains?
Well, floods are a huge problem, and unfortunately, due to climate change, we're going to see more frequent flooding, and we're going to see more severe flooding. And the flooding that is projected to happen around the globe, a lot of it is going to happen in heavily populated areas. So it's one of the reasons why WHO is very concerned that countries move towards having more resilient communities. They move towards having better disaster risk reduction planning, that planning involves the infrastructure necessary to rapidly evacuate people in, let's say, coastal or river areas that are prone to flooding, to move them into a safe place. It means getting out into the community and alerting people who are in areas that are expected to be flooding, that there's a very real risk of drowning in a flood-related event. So it's a very serious problem, and it's a problem that unfortunately is increasing directly as a result of climate change. There's many intersections between climate change and human health, and the drowning risk is one of them.
All right. Do you think that drowning is a fear that is posed, or rather more likely to be posed now going forward, by the climate change?
Yes, absolutely. Climate change is already playing a near daily role in increasing risk for drowning around the world. You don't have to spend much time reading newspapers, listening to radio, going on the internet before you will hear about a severe flooding incident happening in this country or that country, and the numbers of people who have drowned. I mean, we've just had in Libya a horrible catastrophe where, due to extreme weather, likely related to climate change and heavy rainfall, your viewers probably remember that a number of dams on a river in Libya burst, flowed through a city and literally carried hundreds of people out into the Mediterranean Sea. And so with one single event, we've observed a very large number of people who've lost their lives. The vast majority of those would be losing their lives due to drowning.
Awesome. WHO, as we wind up, WHO has a lot of resources, materials, and all that. Where can we get some of these materials? Is there a link? Is there a website we can click on, get to read, get to understand more about drowning and all that?
Yep, there certainly is. I'm not going to try and remember what our exact web address is, but if somebody just does a Google search and looks for WHO drowning, you will go to the WHO website where we have all of our publications and all of our guidance related to drowning. So, and I'll just say, I know a lot of your viewers, they come from different walks of life. And we've really made an effort to try and write a lot of the material that we have on drowning for common, everyday people, so that they're very accessible publications that try and put in simple terms what the problem is and how it can be solved.
It was a privilege to interview you, David. I'm so happy to have your time, giving me this opportunity, definitely to educate the public about the water safety standards. So what are your closing remarks?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Sammy, because it's people like you who are passionate about drowning prevention, who are engaged in using your youth, your energy, your vitality to do something positive for not just your own community, but a broader global community. And so all of this is a sign of the sort of thing that we need. We need many more Sammy Thiangas in this world. So it's been an honor and a pleasure for me to speak with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Hoping to see you soon. All right.
Absolutely.
Cheers. Thank you.